What's new in agriculture, Pennsylvania's largest industry? Next on Behind the Headlines.
This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow for the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined by my co-host for this show, Jerry Strickmatter. Jerry, welcome.
Thanks,
of course,
Charlie.
A board member of Susquehanna Valley Center, and you're setting in for Mara, who is on vacation. So thank you very much, Jerry, for
Happy to be
filling
here.
in. That's nice to have you again. For this particular show, we're going to be looking at a number of items, but one of the biggest items, of course, is what is traditionally referred to as Pennsylvania's #1 industry, agriculture. And who better to talk about agriculture than the chairman of the Senate Agricultural Committee here in Harrisburg? And that, of course, is Senator Brubaker from Lancaster County. Senator Brubaker, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Charlie.
Thank you so much for joining us. There are so many different topics that Jerry and I can talk about with you because you're involved in many different projects, and you're sort of a Renaissance legislator. You don't restrict yourself to just one area. Since I talked about agriculture first, and to lead in, let's talk a little bit about agriculture first. What are the biggest issues that are facing agriculture in Pennsylvania, here in the Keystone State?
Well, thank you, Charlie and Jerry. Great to be with you. Agriculture is a great topic to start out on because it is our state's largest industry. 63,000 farm families. Isn't that amazing? Creating billions of dollars of revenue, and then that revenue stays in Pennsylvania, so it regenerates itself. Very, very important. You can't talk about agriculture without talking about dairy, because dairy in Pennsylvania is 40% of our Commonwealth's ag revenue. And dairy over the last 2 years or so has not been good. What the farmers receive for their milk is less than their cost. And of course, anybody in business understands when that environment happens, economically, you cannot continue. So it's a problem that we're addressing. It needs to be fixed.
What made that price for milk decrease? Was this the increasing energy costs that the dairy farmers are encountering? What's happened within the dairy industry to create a situation like that?
Great question. Probably 5 or 6 factors. One of the top factors is the fact that the feed price went up significantly, and then the price in which they were getting for the milk was holding. So that alone created economic disparity. That was one. Then 2, our consumers are paying an overorder premium for their milk. Every consumer, when you buy a gallon of milk, you're paying an overorder premium. Those dollars are to go back to the Pennsylvania dairy producer. In some cases they go back, in some cases they don't. It's a very complex topic. The Milk Marketing Board's been dealing with it for a long time. Now the General Assembly is taking a very close look at whether all those dollars are going back, and if they're not, where are they going? And if we're not satisfied with the conclusions that we yield, then legislatively we may be taking action.
We know that farmers are the best environmentalists, best optimists that put seed in the ground and expect to make a profit. And if you're not making profits year after year, the agriculture community is used to having cycles. However, unless you create wealth, we're going to have a big problem, aren't we? And with that, I understand that you've been leading the forefront on creating more wealth with an international caucus looking into increasing commerce. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. That was a great transition from ag to international caucus, and there is a lot of crossovers. But internationally, do you realize that 96% of the consumers of the world are outside the United States? And there's 57 million workers in the United States that work for a company that does international work. That some of their clientele are international. So we know there's approximately 195 countries in the world. We're one of 195. It makes perfect sense to me to make sure that we're acknowledging that we're currently working today in a global environment. Is the United States important? Is Pennsylvania important? Absolutely yes. But to look internally only inside of Pennsylvania or only inside the United States limits our market potential. So it made sense to me that as a member of the Pennsylvania General Assembly, we have lots of caucuses. Why not add an international commerce caucus, a caucus that focuses on people and investors from around the world that want to invest right here in Pennsylvania. So that's what we're doing.
So what are the next steps with that? You formed it, but what do you
Formed
see
it.
in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year?
Well, one, it would be to better inform all members of the Pennsylvania General Assembly, House and Senate, 253 of us, on the value of international commerce. This is not shipping work overseas. This is working cooperatively with companies that in Pennsylvania that currently are doing some business internationally, making sure that as we host international guests, that we're exposing them to those international opportunities. It dawned on me for quite some time since I've been in the General Assembly, we have all these international dignitaries coming through the Capitol. And many times I would find out about them 1, 2, 3 days after they were here. And I said to myself, I would love the opportunity, would have loved the opportunity to meet them, to interact with them, especially if they're making an investment in a company that's in my district. So we want to connect investors from around the world to Pennsylvania companies when that connection seems right for Pennsylvania.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that the state some folks at the state level would think about doing something. I mean, here we have almost an impotent federal government that doesn't enforce its own laws, and what better example than, of course, Arizona having to try to do something about enforcing the border when the federal government won't do it. And so now the president has been saying we're going to double the amount of exports we have within a short period of time, and we don't hear very much about this at all, Senator. So it's good to hear that, at least at the state level, you folks are stepping up to the plate and saying these are the things we need to do to increase exports, at least from Pennsylvania, to the world. Is there a strong focus on fostering exports out of Pennsylvania?
There has been historically. Some people believe that it's backed off a bit in the last few years. It's clear that we need to do more. Currently, 8% of Pennsylvania's total economic output goes overseas, 8%. So I don't know what that percent should be, but I do know that we're in a global environment. Those people that think we ought not be, that ship has sailed a long time ago. And I think to only internally focus on Pennsylvania for our commerce limits our ability for our companies to grow and for our jobs to grow. So those companies that are interested in growing that 8% product displacement that's going overseas to 10, 12, 15, 20% makes perfect sense to me, that we pursue that in an intelligent, thoughtful way.
Yeah, our competition isn't just Virginia or South Carolina or Georgia. Our competition is Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Japan, and so forth as well. So,
having a safe food supply is very important. And do you see this helping our agriculture community, since you have been in the forefront of that for years before you come to the General Assembly? Do you see this as a bright future, and other members, viewing this, across the Commonwealth as they will be? Is there hope, and which segments of the agriculture community, or do you think it's all of it as a whole when you're talking about commerce, or are you looking at manufacturing in addition to agriculture? Well,
Jerry, you mentioned safe food supply. I'm glad you mentioned that. Pennsylvania is clearly on the global front on food safety. We have a certification program that certifies the quality of an egg. And that certification process, of course, you don't want to eat a bad egg, do you, Charlie?
No, absolutely not.
One is too many.
One is too many. So therefore, we don't want a single bad egg in our grocery stores. So we have a program, Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, working cooperatively with egg producers, formed a program that inspects eggs and does it exceptionally well. That's been nationally and internationally recognized as a fantastic way to ensure the consumer's getting 12 good eggs in a dozen. And that's very, very important. So so anywhere from leading the world in quality eggs to ensuring that we have a laboratory system that tests for things like avian influenza. We have 3 laboratories across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They're always looking for diseases to the animal sector and to the human sector. Of course, some diseases that could potentially come into the animal sector, the livestock sector, can transfer over to humans. So we need to be constantly monitoring that. And if you're not monitoring diseases, then your food supply is at risk. And if food supply is at risk, then the confidence level of the consumer goes down, and the consumer will purchase somewhere else. So we've got to make sure that this whole system stays intact, and we continue to provide the best high-quality food to our consumers at the lowest possible price. And we're doing that right here.